First, I'd like to say peace to the 5% nation of gods and earths. Salaam alaikum, alhamdulillah, rahmatullah, and all the true Muslim brothers and sisters out there. This is BTB TV Sports and Media. Today we're gonna go into the NBA's greatest eras, and we're trying to find something so we can figure out what the greatest eras is. You know what I'm saying? You hear me, Mr. Boston Cross?
Yeah, salute to everybody tapping into the media show. This is gonna be something epic, big. I see a lot of stuff coming out of it. Just want to give a disclaimer, man. This channel over here, we do a lot of politics, social awareness, but this has nothing to do with any of that. This is more or less, what we consider. Again, it's just our opinion, what we consider in our eyes growing up in the era. What's the greatest. So again, y'all make sure y'all tap in. Y'all make sure y'all tap into the Grunt and Grown channel where we talk about, what old folks talk about, different scenarios, old movies. We're doing reviews of how it was when we were growing up. There's just a lot of things, man. We just want to let y'all know. So again, on this channel is only a sports channel. It's for good, friendly, clean debate, and that's about it.
So I messaged the first one. Maybe say go live, right? But this time we pre-recorded it. We want to talk about the greatest players in the era of NBA basketball. And so Cross, give them your top 5.
All right, so I'm gonna go like this. And again, it's just for right now. Once what I get off my head is Dr. J, Michael Jordan, Bernard King, Isaiah Thomas, and Shaquille O'Neal. Or either between Shaquille O'Neal, like you had said before, Shaquille or Wilt. Either the two.
Well, I'm gonna go with the players that I really seen play. I never see Wilt play, but Wilt scored 100 points in the game, so he's gonna be number 5.
Right.
Number 1 is gonna be LeBron James. Number 2, Michael Jordan. Number 3, Magic Johnson. Number 4,
yeah,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Fuck it. And number 5, Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay.
Stop with that, bro.
Yep.
Kind of cold. Trying to get over this shit. But yeah, so that's my top 5. We're gonna let the people think, and we're gonna let them hear all the top 30 players, the top 30 greatest players of all time right now, and then we go decipher that and we'll go from that. We're gonna let the first 5 go, then we're gonna see what's up. Here we go.
All right.
It's fair use.
So nearly 2 years ago, I made a video where I ranked my 50 greatest players of all time. Since then, a lot has changed, as some modern players have continued to build their legacy, while some others have regressed a bit. Along with that, I've actually changed my mind on a couple spots on this list. As time passes and you learn more about each player, your perspectives can begin to change. That happened to me in just a couple spots on this list. The reason why this video is a top 30 video instead of a top 50 is because most of the significant changes on the list took place in the top 30 spots. Now, with all of this being said, this is just my list and my opinions, and in no way am I claiming that any spot on this list is an objective fact, but rather it just reflects my honest perspective. Now, once you see it, you might think it's a wild list, but I honestly think a lot of lists online are very similar because people are too scared to give their honest rankings. I've seen just how angry people can get at a list, and I believe that social pressure incentivizes people to develop a general similar consensus. With that being said, that's not how I operate. This is my list based on my experiences, and people can cry, rage, or threaten me. I don't care. This is how I see it, and I want to know how you see it in the comment section below. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 30, John Stockton. Naturally, he dropped just a bit on my list, as modern superstars have been climbing their way up the ranks in the last 2 years.
Oh,
Stockton
There's
is one of the more
39.
controversial players on this list. I've seen the now famous criticism that he doesn't have a left hand. But listen, if Gary Payton says that you're the hardest player he's ever had to guard, then you know what you're doing. Stockton certainly wasn't anything flashy, but he was extremely fundamentally sound throughout the entirety of his career. He's one of those legends who excelled both in longevity and peak performance. Of the 6 seasons with the highest assists per game averages in NBA history, John Stockton has 5 of them, which is truly absurd. On top of that, he's the all-time leader in assists and steals, and neither category is remotely close. The one glaring omission from his resume is obviously an NBA championship. With one, he likely would have been in the top 20, but without it, he finds himself at the starting point of my list. Number 29, Kevin McHale. I feel like my fellow old heads will understand this ranking of McHale, but younger fans don't hear enough about the greatness of this legend. Before Nikola Jokic was the standard of efficiency for the big man, there was Kevin McHale. In the history of the NBA, only 2 players have averaged more than 20 points per game while shooting over 60% from the field and over 80% from the free throw line. They were Nikola Jokic and Kevin McHale. He was one of the most reliable low-post threats that the game has ever seen, with footwork that is second only to Hakeem Olajuwon. Along with that, his 8-foot-long wingspan made him a terrifying defender in the painted area. He was also tougher than 99% of the players in the league, as he put up these numbers in the 1987 finals, while playing on a broken foot. Add 6 all-defense teams and 3 championship rings to his resume, and I'm very comfortable having the man known as the torture chamber this high on the list. Number 28, John Havlicek. If it wasn't for Bill Russell and Larry Bird, then I believe this man would be known as the greatest player in Celtics history. Havlicek was one of the all-time great two-way players, as he was a force from the perimeter on offense and a stifling antagonizer on defense. At his peak, he was averaging 28.9 points per game, and he made 8 all-defense teams throughout his career, which is an achievement that only a few wing players have ever accomplished. More importantly than anything else, he was a pivotal star in the Celtics dynasty days, as he won a whopping 8 championship rings throughout his playing career. He won his lone Finals MVP in 1974, but he should have won several more, considering how the Finals MVP award wasn't introduced to the NBA until 1969. Without Bill Russell, John Havlicek wouldn't be as successful as he was. But without John Havlicek, Bill Russell wouldn't have been as successful as he was either. Number 27, Dirk Nowitzki. This legend was so ahead of his time, and this MVP-winning 7-footer was one of the greatest perimeter shooters that the game has ever seen. He was certainly a more capable defensive player in his youth, but as he aged and as much of his quickness left him, he began to devolve into a below-average defensive player, which keeps him from being higher on my list. With that being said, Dirk has one of, if not the, most impressive title runs in NBA history, where he led his Dallas Mavericks to defeat the Super Team Miami Heat in 2011. For his career as a whole, he made a total of 12 All-NBA teams, while putting up over 31,000 points, earning him the 6th spot on the NBA's all-time scoring list. Number 26, Nikola Jokic. This man wasn't even in my top 50 2 years ago, which tells you how great he's been of late. Simply, he's one of the most efficient and well-rounded offensive players that the game has ever seen, as he can distribute as well as just about anyone, while being an extremely accurate scorer from all areas of the court. He's won 2 MVPs and now a Finals MVP, while delivering the Denver Nuggets their first championship in franchise history. The only thing holding him back is his defensive play. That leaves much to be desired. With that being said, the Joker is the youngest player on this entire list, which means he has plenty of time to skyrocket up my list, which I believe he'll do. After all, Michael Jordan was the same age as Nikola Jokic when he won his first championship ring. Number 25.
All right, Cross. Now you heard the first 5 players. Would have lasted from 30 to 26.
Yeah.
What you think about that list?
I would agree with him on Kevin McHale. The other ones I ain't so much. I mean, John Stockton, he was okay. I didn't know he didn't know how to use his left hand, so that made that even more a problem. And for him, and this is the way I look at it, and that's just my opinion. And for him being a left hand, of course he's gonna have, and he can't use his left hand. Of course he's gonna have high assists. Hell, that's just passing the ball.
Yeah,
he's just good at passing the ball to other people. So I mean,
a player that I don't get, and I'm not really feeling right now. That should be even in his top 30 yet. Nikola Jokic. He haven't proven enough yet. We had 2, maybe 3 good years in the league. 3 standout years in the league.
But that was the way he did it was impressive. You haven't seen anybody do that. Like nobody had nothing for him. Like once he realized how to utilize his body like a real big, like he played like a real big, he played like a Kevin McHale. You know what I'm saying? Like Hakeem Olajuwon, the footwork, for a big man that tall and to be that strong and not timid. So.
But I still think he got a little bit of ways to go before he can be a top 30.
No, that's true. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? This is his list. We go on our list, you know what I'm saying? As we go along. So let's get back into it and see what you think about the Greek Freak.
Giannis. Due to recency bias, it might not be a popular opinion to have Giannis ranked slightly ahead of Jokic. But based on their accolades and their complete body of work so far, I believe Giannis maintains a slight edge. He has more All-NBA selections, infinitely more All-Defense Team selections, an equal amount of MVPs, and an equal amount of championships, while being way ahead on the statistical all-time lists. Due to his recent failure, and yes, I will call it a failure, in the first round of the playoffs, Giannis hasn't done any climbing up the list since I originally did my 50 greatest, but he is the second youngest player in this group of 30, so I know for a fact that the two-way Greek Freak is far from done climbing my list. Number 24, Kevin Garnett. KG is a player who I tend to rank higher than most people. One of my hottest takes is that there really isn't much of a difference between Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett. It's just that one spent the majority of his playing days in the perpetually failing Minnesota organization, while the other had the stability and support of San Antonio. KG literally led the Timberwolves in every major stat category while he was in Minnesota. And then, when he finally joined a team built to contend, he immediately won the Defensive Player of the Year award and the championship, as he was just exiting the prime of his career. With him being one of the most well-rounded players on this list, I'm confident that the big ticket deserves to be as high as I've ranked him. Number 23, Karl Malone. The mailman actually dropped a couple spots since my original list, and it's for reasons that go beyond the current players climbing the list. I'll explain that in a second. Karl was one of the most consistent and dominant scorers throughout his long career, and he was a pretty solid rebounder and defender as well. Two major aspects prevent him from rivaling Tim Duncan in the conversation of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. For one, he had a nasty habit of turning the ball over, as he has the second most turnovers in NBA history. If he was a distributing point guard, then his turnover statistic would be more acceptable, but as a power forward, it's just not. Along with that, Karl had several opportunities at winning a championship ring, but without one, it certainly limits his ranking on the all-time list. Number 22, David Robinson. It was only recently that I realized how controversial my higher ranking of Robinson is. Regardless of moments where he was outshined in the postseason, the Admiral still managed to get 2 championship rings, while being one of the greatest rim protectors in NBA history. He made 8 All-Defense teams throughout his career, and was the Defensive Player of the Year in 1992, which are achievements that Nikola Jokic can only dream of, which is who many people claimed I should have ahead of Robinson. But I don't believe he's earned that just yet. On top of Robinson's proven resume, is an MVP award and a high ranking on many of the all-time statistical lists. Number 21, Dwayne Wade. Remember how I said Malone dropped an extra spot? Well, Dwayne Wade is the reason why, as I'm starting to feel like I ranked him too low on my original list. The Flash was a solid two-way player and is in the conversation with Michael Jordan as the greatest shot-blocking guards in NBA history. He won 3 NBA championships, had an epic Finals MVP performance in 2006, and many people forget that he was probably the MVP of the 2008 Redeem Team, although Kobe and LeBron seem to get all the shine. In a league with great former two guards like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, it's easy for Wade to be taken for granted, which is why I'm moving him a bit up my list.
All right, that was the last 5. All right. Now I'm gonna tell you something, man. Yeah, see, I just judge Karl Malone from a basketball standpoint.
Yeah, but we ain't gonna do that. We ain't gonna do that on Sports Channel. Sports Channel,
it's still sports. It's sports. Karl Malone's an athlete.
Yeah, but what he do on the court has nothing to do with what he does off the court.
Yo, that's how I feel. We got to feel that way because I feel like that about hip hop. It's like we talk about. Now we gonna still sport. We talk about Afrika Bambaataa and what he did in the industry, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't take his ranking back because of what he did in his personal life with the P charge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then at the same time, we can say that about Cole. But again, that's all alleged. We don't know. People have moved on, and it was a child that was formed out of a situation which they have a relationship together.
But listen, what I'm saying is Karl Malone was a legend.
Well, they didn't put him in as a legend. He's not a legend. They just said he was in the top 3 down it.
No. He's a legend. He's a top 75 NBA player all times. He's an NBA legend. That's what the NBA got about.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, he was good. Like I said, I never was a big Karl Malone fan. I think, like they said, I didn't know that he turned the ball over, more than anybody in the league. Top player turned the ball over. I just feel like that whole Utah team at that time anyway wasn't as good as everybody thought it was. You know what I'm saying? They was trying to find the Batman Robin duo, and I just think that was whack. I'm a little upset that they got Kevin Garnett back, bro.
Me too. I think Kevin Garnett should be a little bit higher than that.
He should at least be in the top 15.
Top 15, top 20. I know top 20. He should be in the top 20.
Yeah, you remember he came out of high school and he dominated as a 18-year-old. People fail to realize that 18-year-old big man.
Yeah, you're right though, bro. He came out of high school and he played like 2 or 3 positions when he got an NBA. Small forward, power forward, and center.
And he played during a time where it was very physical at that time. You know what I'm saying? You had Rasheed Wallace. You had all them people during that time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you had Karl Malone, you had Tim Duncan.
Yeah. Mad to go to Tim Duncan at 19.
Yeah. You got a point. Hakeem Olajuwon, right?
Yeah, I think was Hakeem doing this era though?
Huh?
Was Hakeem still around?
Hakeem was still around.
Okay.
I think Kevin Garnett came out in 96.
You sure it was 86?
96. They came out in 96.
Yeah, 96, yeah.
They came out in 96. Remember, Hakeem had won the championship in 93 and 94.
That's true. Yeah, with the Jet.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying. So we can say that too. But, what other play do you? What about Giannis? You think Giannis is too high or too low?
See, that's a good debate because we'll go back to what you were saying about the other big player that just won. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't think. I think Giannis did his thing. I think that one year that when he won that championship, it wore him out because he didn't realize all he had to do. I don't think he could do that. Like certain players can do that, like a MJ or LeBron James or somebody like that. That no matter what, they don't want to lose. You see what I'm saying? So I just think that probably put a lot of wear and tear on his body. I mean, you can't keep doing that every year.
And then you know what? Then we got to think about the eras too. You remember when we was talking about the eras? That's what's the NBA's greatest eras. I don't think the 50s, 60s, and 70s was the greatest. 50s, 60s was the greatest eras because they didn't get more than 10 teams to the middle of the 60s, right? Almost the 70s. You know what I'm saying? We only had 10 teams in the league.
Yeah, we looked that up, and it was the Chicago Packers was the first team to get the expansion team back then.
Yeah.
So
and what was that? That was 60. What? 60. Hold on. What
year was that? I think it was the 60s. I think it was the 60s.
Yeah. 67. And the Chicago Packers want to be in the Washington Bullets. Now you know the Washington Wizards.
Now they Washington Wizards. Yeah, they went from Chicago Packers to the Chicago Bulls, and then Chicago Packers went to Washington Wizards.
Washington Bullets to the Washington Wizards. They run another expansion team to Chicago. The Chicago Bulls did later on.
Facts.
So talk about that. But so like I said, a lot of championships. Everybody talking about how Bill Russell was the greatest all time. He got 11 rings and this and that. He got 11 rings playing against 10 teams.
Yeah, but you also think during the time of Bill Russell, man, you talk about. Well, I can only imagine him playing center in the climate of what was going on. Man, just imagine how many dirty plays they probably did to that man down low.
Yeah.
For real.
I can imagine that. And like I said with Karl Malone, the reason I can't rank him so high is because I gotta grade him with the same status I grade everybody else for. It's just not what you do on the basketball stuff court. It's how you carry yourself off of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's why when I judge Karl Malone, I judge him on a different standard. Before I found all that stuff about Karl Malone and him having that 13-year-old girl pregnant, bro, I was a big Karl Malone fan. When I found that out, I'm like, he was 21 years old, 21 in college. And the little girl was 12, like maybe she was 13.
But aside from that, P, we can both agree. You can't sit and tell me you were a fan of Karl Malone and you wanted Karl Malone and them to win a game. You can't sit here and tell me.
No, I didn't want to win no game. I said he was a great player. I consider that.
Right. Well, even if you took the P off away from it, bro, I'm not knocking Karl Malone, but we both can agree. Karl Malone is not in that. He's not barber. He's never been a barbershop talk. He's never been gym talk. He ain't never been workout talk. I don't even think Karl Malone even come up in the grocery store Walmart. You just don't hear that.
All right, let's go. We got the number 20 right here, and we know what that is. Round amount of rebound.
Charles Barkley. Until the day I die, I'll be telling people that Charles Barkley was so much better than most people realize. Early in his career, he was a remarkable blend of strength, speed, and athleticism. He's, quote, officially listed at 6'6", yet Barkley himself said that he's around 6'4". Regardless of which I claim, people in the chat always get mad at me. Regardless of what it actually is, Chuck always played way bigger than his height would suggest, as he was one of the greatest rebounders in NBA history, to go along with the fact that he was one of the most efficient scorers of all time, as he was frequently shooting around 60% from the field during his prime. Add in the 1993 MVP, and I'm more than comfortable putting the round mound of rebound in my top 20. Number 19, Kevin Durant. He's one of the most skilled and most difficult players to guard that the league has ever seen. He was the league MVP in 2014, and just a season prior, he had a 50-40-90 year while averaging 28 points per game. He has won the NBA championship twice and was the finals MVP on both occasions. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those people who don't believe that all rings are created equal. Joining a 73-9 team that just beat you when you choked away a massive series lead is not something that I'm simply going to look past, and I'm certainly never going to forget it. If Durant had won a ring before or after, then it would do a lot to validate himself, but he hasn't done that, which is why he isn't higher on my list regardless of his tremendous top 10 capable talent. Number 18, Elgin Baylor. For his size, he may have been the greatest rebounder to ever live, as he got as high as 19.8 rebounds per game, at only the height of 6'5". Along with that, Baylor was the most prolific scorer in Lakers history until Kobe Bryant showed up, as he has the NBA Finals record for the most points scored in a Finals game with a total of 61. Essentially, Elgin Baylor is what you get if Michael Jordan gave Dennis Rodman some of his scoring ability. And for this reason, I have him higher on my list than most people typically do. Number 17, Oscar Robertson. He was one of the most well-rounded offensive threats that the game has ever seen. Everyone talks about his triple-double season in 1962, but what people usually fail to consider is how he averaged a 30-point triple-double over the course of his first 6 seasons in the NBA. Talk about taking the league by storm. With more championships, he would certainly be much higher on my list. He finally got his first championship in 1971 as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yo, a 30-point triple-double the first 6 seasons of his NBA career, bro? I didn't know that. I thought it was one triple-double season. I know it was
right, but listen to what I'm saying. But remember now, that's why I said it goes back to what we said before. Now, what you said about the teams, that's why I said sometimes the teams don't matter. It's their accolades, bro. You talk about triple-double. I'm mad that he got Elgin Baylor at the bottom. He's tripping. Elgin Baylor was the man. He was the man. He was the laser for the Bucks. Like, come on, bro. You gonna put this man down? Yeah, if he had 6 triple doubles, and that means could nobody guard him. That means they had to tame him down to play with the others. He was a superstar by himself.
Yeah, he was shooting guard. He was the point guard, and he was the power forward grabbing on rebound.
That's why I was just about to say, man, you know that's hard to do. Nigga, he got 6. He got 6 triple doubles. You talking about
30-point triple doubles? We're talking about 15, 10 and 10. We're talking about 30, 10 and 10.
Every time he go, and look, the crazy part for him to be a guard, basically a shooting guard, you expect the crazy part. You can look for him to at least get you. Ain't that crazy that a small forward or a shooting guard can get you at least 10 rebounds? So that means this league is soft.
Yo, that's great.
So you can take away and say it ain't that many teams, but then you can say the league is soft because now you can't hand check. There's a lot of things you can't do now that you used to do back in the day.
Yeah. Let's go to the
And although Oscar was certainly a contributing star, he wasn't the leader of that team, as that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Regardless, his statistical impact is one that hasn't been matched at the point guard position, which is why it wouldn't be a solid top 20 without him. Number 16, Isaiah Thomas. My life has turned into some kind of a sick joke where now I, of all people, have become one of the biggest defenders of Isaiah's legacy. I hated this guy growing up, as he was the face of the Bad Boy Pistons. With that being said, I couldn't deny his talent, as Isaiah was one of the greatest dual threats that the game has ever seen, as he could destroy you by dropping 20 assists in a game, and then the next game, he'll destroy you by scoring 40 points. This all-time great ball handler led his Pistons to back-to-back championships in the late 80s, and if it wasn't for the phantom foul, he probably would have won 3 straight. He's also one of the most clutch performers of all time, like when he set the NBA Finals record by scoring 25 points in a quarter on a swollen ankle, or like when he dropped 16 points in just 94 seconds of a pivotal NBA playoff game. I watched it, I dreaded it, and I firmly believe that Isaiah was one of the best to ever do it. Number 15, Julius Erving. Notice how this video is not titled The 30 Greatest NBA Players of All Time. If it was, I would have to have the doctor much lower on this list. But when you include his ABA accomplishments, he has one of the most impressive careers of all time. Between the two leagues, he has 16 All-Star appearances, 4 league MVPs, and 3 championship rings. Along with that, he was one of the most dynamic high flyers, and the man was scary in fast break situations, dunking on anyone and everyone who stood in his path. He was also a member of the nearly undefeated 1983 76ers, who some Philly fans still believe is the greatest NBA team of all time. Number 14, Moses Malone. I'm so tired of hearing people's lists of the greatest centers of all time, and somehow he keeps getting omitted from it. Moses wasn't just one of the greatest rebounders in league history, but I believe he was objectively the greatest offensive rebounder of all time, which is a trait you just can't overappreciate, as any team would love to have that many second chance opportunities. He was a pretty darn good scorer too, as he got as high as 31.1 points per game in 1982. For his career as a whole, he won 6 rebounding titles. He was a 3-time league MVP, and he was the finals MVP of the championship-winning 1983 76ers. Number 13, Jerry West. Anyone who objectively watches his highlights and pays attention to his skills can see that West was so ahead of his time. Jerry had fantastic mechanics on his jumper and was extremely crafty at getting the shots he wanted. Quite simply, he was one of the greatest scorers and playoff scorers to ever live. The underrated part of his game, though, was his defensive ability. Jerry was arguably the best pickpocket during his playing days, and he was a remarkably sneaky shot blocker. For his career, he made 5 all-defense teams, and all of those were in the twilight of his career, simply because the honor did not exist until that point. If they had always been available for him to win, then he might have had more all-defense team selections than any other guard in league history. Add in a championship ring as a member of the 1972 Lakers, which was the team that won 33 straight games, and he certainly deserves a spot in the top 15. Number 12, Steph Curry. On my list, Steph made a bigger jump than any other player, shooting 11 spots up the list. Since that initial ranking, he's become the all-time leader in three-pointers made. He's won a 4th NBA championship ring, and he secured his first Finals MVP. But let's be real, it really should have been a 2nd. Along with that, Steph has one of the greatest single seasons on any resume, as we witnessed his legendary 2016 unanimous MVP season, where he had the highest scoring 50-40-90 season in league history. Some people want to move him into the top 10, but I think that's a little too much considering how Steph is not an elite defensive player and is kind of just a one-way player. Sure, he's not horrible on defense, but he's certainly not one of the best at the position. Based on my list, he's either the 2nd or the 3rd greatest one-way player of all time. So with that in mind, the 12th spot is certainly nothing to scoff at. Number 11, Shaquille O'Neal. This was one of the more controversial spots on my previous list, but I'm sticking to it. Now I understand Shaq had one of the top 3 greatest peaks that I've ever seen, but that's the thing, we have to emphasize his peak, because Shaq didn't maintain his elite form as well as just about every other player in the top 10. This shouldn't be a debated point either, considering how Shaq's bad conditioning is something he personally admitted to in a public conversation with Kobe Bryant. With that being said, Shaq is as close to being in the top 10 as you can be without making it, and he won 4 championship rings and 3 finals.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something. That Shaq not being in the top 10, I got a problem with that. Shaq definitely should be in the top 10 at least.
And all that list right there, I'm mad about the list right there. See, that's why I'm great. I respect him. That's his list. That don't even make sense. Then you got Isaiah Thomas. Bro, come on, bro. Like, let's be for real. You talking about Zeke. You talking about the face of the bad boys. He just said it. See, that's why I don't understand what he basing his off of. And that's cool. That's his list. But for you to say Isaiah Thomas is in the bottom, you got to remember the greatest one of video games was created off what?
Off
The Bulls versus the Lakers.
Yep.
The Celtics versus the Lakers. Detroit versus the Lakers.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson would not have been Showtime if it wasn't for him and the rivalry between the. And then think about it. It was only two major rivalries in that era. It was the Lakers versus versus Detroit. Then it was the Bulls versus Detroit.
And it was the Lakers versus Boston.
And Lakers versus Boston.
And don't forget about the 76ers versus Boston.
That's right. But I'm saying far as where remember now, even though people didn't like Zeke, they still dealt with him. They didn't like him till Michael Jordan tried to play. You know what I'm saying? Play the bad, play like he was the victim. Because remember, he told them that, man, why y'all like the bad boys? But people fail to realize MJ didn't even have a title at that time. And they kept putting Detroit down like Detroit was nobody. Yeah, they were the bad boys, man. Back to back.
Right. Yeah, this list is weird. This is weird, bro. It's very weird. But we're going to keep going. Because if you got Shaq in 11, you got to have Kobe like Chad probably watch. Mark my words.
Finals MVPs. He should have been the first unanimous MVP winner in 2000, but one smooth-brained voter went with Allen Iverson instead. Number 10, Hakeem Olajuwon. He has the fewest championship rings of any player in my top 12, but I don't believe that's any fault of his own, as the Dream was devoid of superstar talent help throughout the prime years of his career. Sure, he had Ralph Sampson very early on, but it didn't take long for Sampson's back issues to ruin that. Of players who won back-to-back championships, Hakeem Olajuwon was the only player to do it while not having a single All-Star teammate. He was a beast in many aspects, as he not only has a quadruple-double on his resume, but he nearly had two in the same month. He's one of the top 3 greatest defensive players in league history, and he was often among the league leaders in scoring as well, which very few players can claim. The Dream was so good that he was selected before Michael Jordan, yet no one in Houston even regrets it. Number 9, Tim Duncan. The big fundamental was the model of consistency in the game of basketball, as he earned himself 15 All-Defense teams and won 5 NBA championships over the span of 16 years. His 2003 postseason was one of the most dominant playoff stretches, as he historically crushed the New Jersey Nets, nearly getting the only quadruple-double in NBA playoff history. Thanks to a talented supporting cast, Duncan was able to compete for championships long after his prime days were behind him, which is why I don't have him ranked as high as some others might. Still, Duncan certainly deserves a spot in the top 10. Number 8, Kobe Bryant. I moved the Mamba up a spot since my last list, as I figured I had him a bit too low. In terms of his peak, I believe Kobe has a solid argument for a spot in the top 5. But when you look at his career as a whole, it's not quite as glamorous. Kobe took a while to get going in his career, as his first few seasons saw limited production and limited minutes, and his final few seasons in the NBA were straight up ugly, as he was rotating between major injuries while shooting 35% from the field on nearly 20 shots per game. Still, how great were those glory days? At his peak, Kobe was scoring 35 points per game while being first team all defense, which is something only Michael Jordan has basically done as well. Kobe won 5 championships, and his last one doesn't feel appreciated enough, as Kobe led his Lakers to defeat the stacked Boston Celtics while he had a broken index finger on his shooting hand. What other great has a claim like that? Number 7, Magic Johnson. Almost the entire list. The reason why this video
Lacrosse. What you think about the number 8? What the heck, Kobe? Number 8, right?
Man, that's messed up, man. He messing up. Now, I can see Hakeem Olajuwon. Because again, it showed that he was picked first, and he was
Yeah.
coming out of Houston.
Yeah, even like that, I can see with that, right? Like I see that, right? I look at it, right? Hakeem Olajuwon, he was right in a good spot, but then you got to look at it too. Why was how can you rate Shaq so high, so far back. You know what I'm saying? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That doesn't make sense. Shaq, you don't do that. You gonna put Kobe, but then Akeem. Come on, man. Like, I don't know. Some of his, but again, that's this man's, pick. He got every right to pick what he want to pick. But where his base is off and his premise is because of that, it don't make sense. Like, when he got Isaiah, bro, because we wouldn't have had the video games. The video games Sega started dropping video games because of all that. They didn't drop video games for the other people. They dropped video games just like when Tecmo. Like, people got to realize, if it wasn't for Bo Jackson, we would have never had Tecmo Bowl.
Bo Jackson, don't forget Bo Jackson and Jerry Rice.
And Jerry Rice,
they're the best players on. They're the best players on Tecmo Bowl.
I apologize, and Walter Payton.
Walter Payton, okay, yeah. They're the best players on Tecmo Bowl. Remember that?
So yeah, I don't know. I just think right there what he doing. I get it. Don't get pushed. I get it. Kobe, he talking about he moved him up, but you got to remember Kobe. He rebranded himself. I mean, a lot of players don't get. The only person that rebranded themselves was him and Michael Jordan. If you look at it, only two players like they went from. Kobe went from 9 to 24 or 24 to 9, and then Mike went from where he went from. You know what I'm saying?
LeBron done his stuff too.
LeBron did it too. Yep, LeBron has done it too. Yeah, LeBron done it too.
Let's get to number one. Let's debate that. We're gonna debate that. I bet you.
All right.
This video is a top 30 video instead of a top 50 is because most of the significant changes on the list took place in the top 30 spots. Now, with all of this being said, this is just my list and my opinions. Championships, and his last one doesn't feel appreciated enough, as Kobe led his Lakers to defeat the stacked Boston Celtics. He was a lethal scorer. He was season was one of the most dominant playoff stretches. Number 8, Kobe Bryant. Number 7, Magic Johnson. Almost the entirety of his career, Magic was competing for NBA championships. In my opinion, he has the best single playoff performance of all time, as he dropped this stat line in Game 6 of the 1980 Finals, which he did as a rookie while filling in for an injured Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at center. Magic was the embodiment of playing the game the right way, as he specialized in making his teammates better. For his career, he won 5 NBA championships. He was the Finals MVP 3 times, and he won 3 league MVPs. Magic also made 9 trips to the NBA Finals before his first retirement. And for perspective, Magic only played 12 seasons before that first retirement. Some have him ranked even higher than I do, but for me personally, a lack of solid defensive prowess is what limits his ranking. Number 6, Larry Bird. I know it's a hot take to have him ranked over Magic, but the thing about Larry Bird is that he was competing in the much tougher Eastern Conference, as the East was a bloodbath in the 1980s. Along with that, I just believe Bird was the more impressive player from an individual perspective, as he had no holes in his game. He was a lethal scorer, he was an elite rebounder, he was an all-time great passer, and he was an extremely underrated defensive.
Ah, man, they come on. But well, I gotta remember now. It's a list coming from the eyes through his list. So yeah, I can't knock him for that. He's supposed to do that. He's supposed to say who he think was great, and who they said was great in his family, but we both know
We both know.
He said Bird was more spectacular than Magic Johnson. Impressive. Magic Johnson was his name was Showtime.
Well,
It was called Showtime. Bird didn't have one. Bird want the money maker. He want the, you know what I'm saying, to take it to the bank. Bird, they want nothing like that. He had no man to give it to Bird. You know Bird was gonna shoot it, but yeah, he won't Showtime. But
right.
I know the fact how he brought up. See, you see how he tried to play it. And he said, "Well, you know, even Magic went down there to help Kareem. You know what I'm saying, and played off center, but." Magic was 6'10", bro. He could play center. He could play anything. That's what he realized. That's why I don't like it. It's almost like a big what's some new guy's name? Like one of the big tall guys right now that can handle the rock, that can play post, that can shoot, that can pass, that can do no-look passes, that can take people on 3-on-1 and dish the ball correctly. Come on, bro. Gotta give him a run. Bird didn't do nothing. Bird wouldn't have been nothing without Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, and definitely Dennis Johnson. Dennis Johnson made sure he passed the ball to Bird.
Facts. And Dennis Johnson was the best defensive player on the team in the league at the time.
Yeah, your boy really was just a swing man in there to look good with Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge was not the man. He was not the man. It was Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and it was Dennis Johnson. Like you said, Dennis Johnson was the man.
Yep. That's what we're talking about. Let's go.
The first black dude I ever seen with freckles. I knew I was like,
You're right.
Defensive player, which is a topic I've made entire videos about. At one point, Bird had 50, 40, 90 percentages while averaging close to 30 points per game over a 5-year stretch, which quite simply is one of the greatest individual achievements of all time. If it wasn't for his back injuries cutting his career very short, then Bird may have been able to build a career strong enough to consider him in the top 3.
Oh, okay.
Number 5,
Bill
Russell.
If you don't
Let me
mind.
just say this plainly. If Bill Russell was an efficient
I just want to correct and I get what he's saying. So you can't say he was more spectacular if he had back problems. And Magic Johnson left the league early because of him having HIV. So you telling me that Bird would have been better staying in the league with a back problem, or Magic Johnson if he didn't have HIV?
Magic Johnson.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even understand what he talking about. That means he wasn't that good, dude.
He didn't work out enough. He probably was drinking big.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that.
Smoking Marlboros.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
efficient league-leading scorer, he'd easily be my choice as the greatest player of all time. It's kind of astonishing that I'm putting him this high on my list, considering how he was severely limited offensively. Now, with that being said, Russell always claimed that he did the things that actually won basketball games. And who am I to argue with him? In his career, Russell won 11 championship rings, including a ridiculous 8 straight. Along with that, he was 10-0 in series-deciding 7th games, and he always played well in those instances. To this day, many people believe he's the GOAT defensive player, and if the Defensive Player of the Year award had existed, he would have been collecting them like Infinity Stones. At the end of the day, it's all about winning, and anyone could call him their GOAT, and they'd get no arguments from me. Number 4, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. When it comes to the all-time statistics, Kareem has got an argument as good as anyone's for the top spot. What's crazy is that Kareem is second all-time in scoring, and if blocks had been calculated in his first few seasons in the league, he would probably be the all-time leader in block shots as well. If players like Kevin Durant get a boost for being difficult to guard, then so should Kareem, who had the most indefensible shot ever, his patented skyhook. The only thing drawing him back is the fact that he was not the best player in over half of his championship teams. Regardless, he earned 15 All-NBA teams, 11 All-Defense teams, and a whopping 6 league MVPs. so he's certainly worthy of being at least in the 4th spot. Number 3, Wilt Chamberlain. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, and that's fine because I'm not pumping the brakes on this so-called crazy train. To me, Wilt Chamberlain is far greater than people usually give him credit for. Stop and think about what an average of 50 points and 25 rebounds looks like on a nightly basis. I don't think people actually take the time to fathom that. Wilt broke so many records throughout his career that they just started calling him the record book. People try to belittle his accomplishments and make sense of it by saying that he played against weaker competition. But when you consider that Wilt played against Bill Russell, Walt Bellamy, and Nate Thurmond each around 12 to 16 times per season, then you start to realize just how impressive his accomplishments were. Honestly, I could elaborate on Wilt's ranking endlessly, but if you've seen any of my Wilt videos before, you get it. Number 2, LeBron James. A couple years ago, I had LeBron fans all up in their feelings when I ranked him 4th on my list. Honestly, that was less about a negative view of LeBron and more about my positive views of Kareem and Wilt. At this point though, LeBron has built up such a body of work that he has to be at least in the 2nd spot. He's earned an absurd 19 All-Star selections. He's won 4 NBA championships, 4 Finals MVPs, and 4 league MVPs. He's now the NBA's all-time leading scorer, the all-time leading playoff scorer, and he's up to the 4th spot on the NBA's all-time assists list. Honestly, there is an argument for LeBron to take the number 1 spot, and I truly believe that. But that argument would have to focus on the complete body of work of his NBA career so far, which is only becoming more impressive the longer he plays. For me, peak performance is what's most important.
All right, bruh. What you think about that Bill Russell thing?
Yeah, I just don't understand how he took away with Kareem.
Bill, yeah, for real. Bill Russell only averaged for 15 points his whole career, bro. 15 points and what, 20 rebounds? Or 15 points and 16 rebounds?
Yeah,
That's a bench play right now.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That means his shot selection wasn't good. He was just there for the rebounds and the putback like Dennis Rodman. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like, yeah, but at the same time, when you put Kareem before, that's crazy. Way more plays.
No, that's crazy. That's crazy, yo. We're about to go number 1 now.
All right.
Let's see what happens. Oh, no.
Most important though, which takes us to our number 1 spot. Number 1, Michael Jordan. 6 championships in 8 years. He earned 9 first-team all-defense selections, and he won the scoring title in all of those seasons as well. Not only was Jordan 6-0 in the NBA Finals, but he was constantly breaking records in those finals. A lot of Gen Z LeBron fans want to discredit Jordan's competition and try to belittle his dominance over the league. But here's the thing. The only reason you're able to belittle Jordan's competition is because MJ dominated the league in the first place. Let's take Karl Malone for example. If Michael Jordan never existed, Karl Malone would have had 3 league MVPs instead of 2. He would have had 5 scoring titles instead of 0, and he would have won 2 championships instead of 0. Without MJ as an obstacle, Malone is rivaling Tim Duncan for the title of the greatest power forward of all time. But because Jordan existed, he's treated like an afterthought, as his legacy is completely different. That's the effect MJ had on the league, as he kept Malone, Stockton, Barkley, Ewing, Kemp, Penny, Miller, and many others from ever winning an NBA championship. This is just one of the many reasons why he's still my choice as the greatest player of all time. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, of course. You want to talk about when MJ's playing in the league, how all the players was old and becoming washed up and all hurt and broken up by the time he started winning his championships?
No, that's not true.
Man,
They
yo, Isaiah Thomas was hurt to watch. Magic Johnson was on his way out. Larry Bird was on his way out. You know what I'm saying?
still had people like Shaquille O'Neal. Still had
Shaquille O'Neal came later. Shaquille O'Neal came, we came in, was it 92, 93?
or was it? Still had you still had a plethora of people. You can't overlook. You had shit. You still had the Lakers.
Yeah, old Magic Johnson. Bill Worthy was getting on already. You know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was over.
Yeah, so James Worthy and Michael Jordan played on the same college team.
I know, but James Worthy was 2 years
Hold
older
on.
than Michael Jordan.
Hold on. I know that. And James Worthy was with an all-star cast. Michael Jordan did not have an all-star cast, bro. You cannot sit here and say he had a point guard who came out of damn Arkansas, which was Scottie Pippen, and Pippen was good, but he wasn't that great. Like I said, they had, and remember now when Jordan first came out, they had all the people that was on the team. They was garbage. They lost every game. So I don't know.
It took the Jordan to get Pippen. And Pippen was a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. And he's in the top 75.
Yeah, but you also told me too. It's not like when you said, that's why I said about Carl, when you said no, but you said it's not about the work that they do on the court, but off the court. So off the court, Michael Jordan's shoes, he is not in the league to this day, and his shoes are still the top brand shoes. So off the court, and him buying stuff and being one of the players to buy business. Another category. He owned the Bobcats. He owned a bunch of stuff. He has his shoe line. He got the Jordan brand. No other players during that era back then even got none of that now.
Yeah.
Your Penny don't got his shoes no more. AI, yeah, they there, but they're not as big as that. Everybody ain't doing that. So yeah.
But yeah, bro. Yeah, this was a good show, man. I appreciate everybody for coming, man. This is BTB TV Sports Media. I got my boy Cross, aka The Plug, up here. I'm your honorable host of King, New Jersey. You know what I'm saying? BTB TV, Mr. Eastwick, how we do it over there too. So yo, y'all like, share, subscribe, and y'all put this video in the atmosphere for me. We appreciate y'all, and we appreciate y'all coming up and joining us today.
Peace.
Peace.